What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to take a look at the original Gears of War game. I thought, we just went through our Halloween month, and now it's time to start looking back at some old games that are not in the horror genre. So let's look back at a classic Xbox game, one that really propelled Xbox even further. They had Halo out at the time, but I remember Gears of War coming out and being a legit thing. And we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Gears and the critical reception and it being one of the fastest selling. I think it was the fastest selling game, period, the year that it came out in 2006, and obviously spawned an entire franchise, a couple different genres even mixed in there, and it really just became a really big thing. Now, here's the deal. For me personally, I skipped out on at least the first couple Gears of War games. My experience playing Gears of War was through friends. Jumping way later to the last Gears of War game, Gears 5, at Xbox, actually, this was back in the infancy of my channel. They actually gave me a code for the game. I remember playing Gears 5, and I've always liked it. I've always, again, like I would watch my friends play it. I'd play it with them. The multiplayer being so iconic of it, and we're going to talk about that as well. And I remember liking it, but I never really, it's just been a franchise I haven't really gotten into. I kind of grew up PS3 era. I chose the PS3 over the 360, but I would go over to my friend's house and, play Halo 3 and play Reach and all that stuff. And I was a big Halo guy, but Gears of War was just never really all that into. So I thought, all right, this would be a fun little series. Let's go through all the games. And I've only played the first game for the purpose of this video, but I do want to go through all the Gears of War games. And for this video, I want to talk about the game in 2023. Does it still hold up? Again, talk a little bit about the history of this game and just how good the game is. And I'll start there. This game is very good. In terms of does it hold up? Yeah, it kind of does. Now, I played the remastered version, if it's definitive edition or whatever you want to call it. I think actually this back here, the wallpaper here, that is the logo, and it's like the more modern version. And, it holds up very well. It looks very cool. A lot of the cutscenes in this game, the CGI looks very nice. And still, obviously you're not going to convince anybody it was made just now, but again, PlayStation guy, at least in the PS3 era, and I got my PS3 late. I got it in 2009, and Uncharted was one of the first franchises I had jumped into, and, I remember playing Uncharted 1 and then just thinking about it. So Uncharted 1 came out in 2007. This game came out in 2006. Man, they were starting really good in the beginning of the 360 PS3 era, the Resistances of the world, the Gears of War, but, like I said, Halo was already such a big thing. And obviously, this being a very different kind of game, this game came out, this game did insane. I think the statistics are 3 million units in the first 2.5 months, which back then, extremely, sometimes now franchises, they'll sell 2 million the first couple days. That was extremely good back then. Like I said, fastest selling game of the entire year, and it was just a runaway success. And you've had all of these sequels. You've made it a franchise. I will say, I don't think it hit its peak at the beginning, and I think that's common. I think that's understandable. You think to Uncharted 1, jumping to Uncharted 2, gigantic jump. Gears 1 has a lot of promise, has a lot of potential, and it's got all the foundation that you would want. I think the final level, the train sequence, not having played it before, I was like, wow, this did Uncharted 2 before Uncharted 2 did it, because the train actually is pretty darn cool in Gears of War. But, okay, so in terms of the game itself, well, simple enough mechanics, but pretty darn different for the time, and I think that's what I really respect about this franchise the most. I think that's why it still kind of holds up so well nowadays is, the visuals are a part of it, right? Like, if it looks absolutely terrible, it's going to take you out of it a little bit. But it's so different in terms of it's heavy, clunky in a way, but I actually kind of respect, the way that Marcus moves and, going from cover to cover. This is a pretty strategic shooter, third-person shooter, and the weapons are cool in this game. The enemies are cool in this game. One thing that I noticed playing it, again, a week ago for this video, is the AI is surprisingly genius. I will say again, you can't probably convince somebody that the entirety of the game came out 2023, right? It doesn't look that good. But what you can do is you could probably tell people or show them small clips of how the AI fights you. And you could say, is that new? Is that new? Because the AI, I think, runs laps around many of the other AI systems back then. And even now, you see, I don't focus on AI too much, but sometimes developers will talk about it. So I will focus. When I'm playing a game, I'll look at enemy movements and I'll say, okay, well, like, are they moving in a smart manner? And, then, like, will they flank you? And things like that. And oftentimes they don't. Like, AI, I think, is, like, pretty average across the board. I think games that have really intelligent AI, they kind of stand out, and they're kind of not the norm because you can kind of point them out. You can say, wow, that game, enemies will flank you. They'll trick you into thinking they're coming one. Like, there's not a lot of games that do that, and when they do, they're kind of special. And I think this game, for back in 2006, it does incredibly, because I found it kind of like, not frustrating, I found it difficult. Not just the simple thing of like, yeah, you got to take cover, you got to manage your health and make sure, the ammo and all the different kind of stuff, right? You have to do all that. But, like, the AI, you don't want to just, like, they're not stupid. You can't rush up to them. You can't, like, take them for granted. There's going to be a couple of them. They're going to try, like, weird kind of maneuvers. I died several times, like, in the same portion of a level, and the enemy will, they'll kind of replicate what they just did. After you die, they'll do it again, but not fully. Like, they have weird patterns that are actually pretty clever. Like, it's kind of hard to anticipate what they're going to do. They don't stay still all the time. Because of the cover system in this game that I think is so original, they move around and they use that cover just like you do, right? It's very cool. And I guess that goes back to, why does this game also kind of still hold up besides the AI? I think because of its kind of clunky, heavier, kind of movement of shimmying from cover to cover and, doing all these rolls or, again, like going from one side of a wall to the other to get a better angle. Like, that kind of stuff was different. It was different back in, like, again, you had Halo 2 and 3 coming out, and, like, Halo and Gears are not the same. Like, this is way more tactical, and the feel of it, just that clunky kind of feel, I think is so iconic, and it works so well in Gears of War. And I gotta be honest, that is, to me, the main draw of this game. I think it is an excellent, even still to this day, I think it is a really excellent third-person shooter. I will say the story and the characters leave a lot to be desired. The universe is, like, you can tell the potential that it has, and obviously they kept going, so, they're going to add to it. But in terms of the characters, like, none super stand out. Like, obviously Marcus being the lead man, like, he's got a little mystery behind him. He's got a little background to him. Like, he's fine. I wouldn't call him amazing by any means. I think it kind of fits, like, just the stereotypical, like, he's this big kind of alpha male and he's just going out and, like, killing everything, which was very much like those mid-2000s is what you had. Even, like, Nathan Drake being this very cocky Indiana Jones-like figure, right? Like, these were just kind of the characters that you got, and then they would add a couple more dimensions to them. I think Nate, by the way, was a little bit more well-rounded than Marcus, at least in their first games, but that's how they started, right? Like, generally, there wasn't all that much there, and even in terms of the plot and kind of where it's going, it's kind of just mission after mission, right? Like, you do something, and something happens, you go somewhere else, you kill a bunch of enemies, you activate this thing, you go, and there's not too much. You're kind of moving around too much for there to be, like, an overall plot. And then there is, like, the ending is, like, an entire phase of, like, what you're trying to do. And I will say, jumping from location to location, there are some pretty cool locations. There's a couple, like, on-rail-like things that happen in this game that I think is good. Like I said, like, this game has a lot of, it reminds me of that era, okay? It reminds me of that early 360 PS3. I actually can't help but to compare it to Uncharted because I see so many parallels of super solid foundation. It was doing something a little bit different than what you were, looking at the time. And it has so much room to kind of grow. But, like, when you look at it from, like, right now, there's not too many of these massively dynamic scenes and these, just massive moments, let's say. And there are a couple in Gears 1, but it obviously, only improves kind of from here. But it's just a great foundation. Now, one thing, well, actually two things I haven't mentioned yet. Co-op. Now, I didn't play the game in co-op, but co-op is a really nice kind of add, and even, back in the day. And the game is I think it's very smart in how it does it. It'll make you split off from your group multiple times, but it'll always have you be kind of with a buddy. I will say, actually, what's very funny about this game, the enemy AI is incredibly smart. Your AI is like 50-50 that they're the dumbest people you've ever met in your life, or they're surprisingly good. It's actually kind of like a cliche, especially with AI. I feel like around this time, if they're around enemies, they are bulldozers. They will do their job. You can rely on them to take a couple of them out. Like they will, and actually there are some AI in some games out there that like they'll distract the enemy. Sometimes your own AI can't actually take out the enemy. You'll have to do that. In this game, if they're in the, area, the vicinity of, the enemy, they can do an okay job of taking it out. If they are not, well, that's actually where I found quite a few glitches or bugs. I don't even know. Can you call them glitches or bugs? I think just the mechanics just weren't there yet or even when the remaster, which was years and years later. But for whatever reason, the AI will get lost. So if you move up too far and if it doesn't kind of pull the AI to you, you can, and I did this multiple times, you can go through entire segments of fighting maybe 10 enemies, right? And it's so strategic, and you're against the wall, and you're laying down cover, and maybe you have to go up and, saw one in half and all this stuff, and your AI partner is not even in the same room. They are back like 10 minutes past in the game, and they're not coming. You can't expect them to come to kind of bail you out. So that is actually, I played this game about a week and a half ago, so it's been a little while, and I kind of forgot this, but I am remembering it now. Enemy AI caught me off guard in terms of they are very smart for the time, not even just for the time. I think in general, it's still a very smart AI system that would rival many games that come out in 2023. The ally AI, if you're not playing co-op. Now, maybe playing co-op would solve these issues, right? But playing by yourself, I'm a loner, I play by myself. Your AI friend is as dumb as a doornail and definitely reminds me more of like, yes, this is what AI is all about, right? AI that sometimes they're fine, sometimes they're not even present to help you. They can't even help you because they're not there. And it's like, yeah, that makes more sense. That feels more kind of modern, or even back in 2006. So yeah, that. Now, I wish I could say that I could give you any kind of impressions of the multiplayer, this game's multiplayer. Now, again, my jump into Gears in terms of watching my friends play and then playing it myself, I started with the multiplayer. So I would watch them play a couple multiplayer matches. And again, I think the strategic elements of this game work so well when you're playing against humans, because you have people running around like, with a saw, revving up the saw and sawing people in half. But you got to be careful because it doesn't take that many hits to, bring you down. So I remember it was maybe like Gears 3. It was probably that era. I think it was probably like Gears 3 or later that I would watch my friends play online. I don't even know if I watched the story, but playing online, then I would play online. I wasn't very good at it. So I wish I could give you any kind of report on like how's the multiplayer in 2023. I will say that I tried and I just sat there. I sat in the multiplayer lobbies, and I'm here to report that while the game I think still holds up actually really well in this modern day, the multiplayer, well, it's not non-existent because nobody's playing it. Now I don't blame that, because who is going to go back and play? I'm sure, and I want to cover many of these games, maybe if not all of them. I'm sure as I get going and I play some of the later ones, I probably will be able to get into multiplayer lobbies. Gears of War 1, I don't know how many people are playing Gears of War 1. Actually, I can tell you, there's 0 people playing the first game. So that, sadly, I can't report on. But honestly, I was impressed. It gave me a lot of memories, even though I didn't play it. It gave me a lot of memories of that early 360 PS3 era where it's just a different kind of game, but it does have its cliches, right? It has its moments where it's like, yeah, you've seen this before, like stereotypical kind of characters or situations or jumping from point A to point B, and it's just these kind of just get from one place to the next and do one objective. You're going to fight a couple, waves of enemies, go to the next zone and do the exact same thing, right? But also has a couple big boss fights and a couple, like I said, like on-rail things. And it's got a lot of potential in terms of the story department. The AI is shockingly way above what I, expected. And in terms of the mechanics of, like, is this a fun shooter? Yeah, like, I had fun. The weapons in this game are very cool. And it's one of those games where all the weapons are really fun to play with. So you're not just, like, normally how I play, I don't even know if I've said this, at least not on this channel before. Oftentimes with games like this, you even think to like the games like Borderlands and stuff, I have like my favorite kind of guns and I just stick with it. Even if there's guns that are maybe more powerful, I tend to just stick with like what I know, right? I kind of get really comfortable with certain, and I do, and I did with this game, just like I do with all of them. But all of the weapons in this game are actually super cool to mess around with. So it makes you, like, in your head, it makes you say, oh, I want to try it. Let me just try it. I'll do it for like one level. The ammo, I think, is very forgiving, at least on the, I think I was playing on like normal or medium or whatever it was. Very like forgiving. It gives you a lot of ammo, gives you ammo for your specific weapon. Obviously, some weapons have less ammo drops than others, but gives you enough to like handle certain situations. The enemies are smart. There's enough of them that are a little bit different. They get, they do the thing where like every so often they introduce a new kind of enemy. Eventually it just becomes where they're just slight deviations off of like one you've already seen. So like the ones that are like the crawling quick ones, and then they just kind of change them just a little bit to be, well, they explode. They explode on impact, or they explode if they get too close. So they're not totally different, but they are slightly. So again, like, it's got those moments where you've kind of seen it before, you know what to expect, but it also has the foundation there, and you're never going to forget how it feels. You're never going to forget the strategic element. You're never going to forget. I think the enemy AI is something I can't shut up about. Like, it's really good. I'm honestly, in terms of like the video title, does the game hold up? Yeah, it actually does. This game, I do believe, overall holds up surprisingly well in 2023. I'm glad I played it because I liked it over. I don't know if I loved it. I liked it, and I'm very excited. As long as this video it does like okay in terms of views, I definitely want to do the rest of the Gears of War games. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.